Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Commoner Law Group's monthly gathering for free travelers. The Free Travelers Monthly Confab happens every first Tuesday of the month at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And wherever you're coming in from, I welcome you and thank you for being here. We have a really great couple hours ahead of us. We're starting out with a presentation by a man whose video of his court appearance in traffic court recently has made quite a stir on the internet. It's getting a lot of attention because he was successful in getting the judge to dismiss his 2 counts. And we're going to be hearing from the man himself, Ryan Thor. We're going to watch the video, we're going to analyze it, and we're going to learn from it, all of us, be inspired by it. That I'm here with David James Rodriguez, my faithful co-host, who's really the one who inspired this whole video conference confab that we started. Today's our 20th month in a row. So yeah, David is a free traveler. I've been working with folks who want to free themselves of government oppression in a lot of ways. A lot of people came to the Commoner Law Group in 2020 because they were trying to avoid government mandated vaccines. And well, we've learned that the government has a lot of ways of interfering in our lives and charging us for the pleasure of being ripped off. So yeah, David and I work together on a free traveler course you can see at Commoner Law Group /free-traveler, or you can just go straight to commonerlaw.com and you can check that out. And I learned so much about the right to travel and really how important it is that we're able to free ourselves first mentally, free our minds of the idea that we have to ask permission of the government to be able to travel in our automobiles from place to place. And David was on the court and in the battlefield fighting back with private plates and doing all kinds of things to defy the notion that the government can dictate when and where you get to go where you want to go, and you have to pay them for the privilege. So David, thank you so much for being that inspiration early on. How are you tonight?
Awesome. Yeah, great, Clint. Thanks for co-creating this together and being a leader in your own right for the law and for justice and the rights of individuals. This seems to be the great awakening that's happening right now. People are starting to realize, like, hey, man, what's these code statutes and cockamamie things that all these politicians are forcing upon us, of course, with the whole pandemic and COVID and now right to travel. I think right to travel is a very powerful part of their tyranny because of the driver's license. And when you and I did our program and various presentations, we saw in various states, I want to say Utah, but they were actually talking about connecting the Vax passport to the driver's license. So that's you got to start thinking like these criminal control freaks. What's the easiest thing? Well, they know people are just going to get their driver's license, so they want to conflate that with the vaccine information there. So it's like, this is a very important part, because I just saw an article from Bill Gates, maybe it was about a week or two ago, and he said, without a government digital ID, you won't be able to participate in society. And so you can feel like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So what's going to happen is that humans, brothers and sisters, men and women on earth like us, we are rediscovering self-ownership and natural rights and natural law, which are above government and above humans, right? It's like God and people and the government. And so they've inverted it so people don't know their left from the right, and etc. So it's a very beautiful time to be alive, and I'm really looking forward to our guest speaker tonight. You sent that video because I've tried some of those techniques, not all of them that he put in there, and I'll share some of the happenings that I had. And there's a trial and error process, over the past few years, trying to hold court on the side of the road. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I like what Ryan said, is just the video record everything, because I think that's the way forward. And I saw the previous video you sent, Clint, which was, hey, this is after the fact, after his charges got dismissed, what would he do differently and what's his recommendations? Because eventually the tyranny is either going to reach your doorstep or it's going to be destroyed by humanity. So you want to be prepared and know what's the mountain that you're going to dedicate your life to, or what's the hill that you're willing to draw the line in the sand and say, I'm not going to do that. And I was honored that we had Bob Dixon on last month, where he is in his 60s and he's had enough of it all. And he just says, I'm not afraid of jail. I'm not afraid of fines. I'm not afraid of death. They can't control you if you're not afraid of any of their techniques. So he's like, we're going to take you to jail. He says, take me to jail. We're going to give you a fine. Give me a fine, you know? And so this is the mentality, which is some things are worth more than our lives. And that seems to be freedom and truth and love and these parts of free humanity that we're starting to find again. So I think this monthly confab, Clint, has turned into something very exciting for me as well. And you know, you and I have found some really amazing people, and thankfully, you know, we found Ryan Thor this month. And if other people are out there and you have some interesting facts or strategies or stories, videos to share, you know, we've had Paul Enslaved on here, Trent Goodbody, Bob Dixon. I know I'm missing a bunch of other guys because this is some of the people in the last 12 or 6 months I haven't even met in real life. You know, these are generally people that are out there exercising their freedoms. And some of the people that come here every month, you know, are amazing humans as well. So it's very uplifting to know that we are learning the light is rising, and this type of a facilitation allows us to come together and to share some of these things. So I'm looking forward to tonight, Clint, and seeing all you guys here in the comments. I think it's gonna be a very beautiful time to ask questions, take notes. You know, when people come and share their story, this is really the only opportunity that you have to ask them questions in a public forum that can be recorded and documented so other people can learn from your questions and learn from their experience. And that's the really positive part, is that people are starting to wake up. We're starting to flex our freedoms. And it's an insane time to be alive. It's a beautiful time to be alive. And I feel almost the spiritual love in myself and in my friends and you guys. And it's like, we're starting to connect and grow. And I think it's just going to ramp up. It's going to get more exciting, and it might get more, you know, intimidating or scary. So you want to know this is a monthly call to gather and ask questions and put our heads together. So yeah, well, I'm looking forward for tonight, Clint. So if our speaker's on here, it'd be great to hear and see the video. Maybe the audience hasn't seen the video. It's really cool.
Absolutely. It's really cool. Yeah, everyone, thanks again for being here. You're in the right place. You know, so many of us are very independent-minded folks. I know for myself, I'm a bit of a lone wolf in the sense that, you know, I've somehow freed myself from the educational system. I somehow managed to get outside of the programming and to transcend the divisions that are, you know, constantly perpetrated upon us to try to divide we the people. And likewise, you guys are here, and I respect everyone who came. I recognize you as different than the average person out there, and the spirit here, though, is going to take off. I mean, it's contagious. The freedom is happening. When I meet people like our guest tonight, it just reminds me that there are more people out there that you have not met, that there's something happening. 100th monkey theory, you might have heard about that. It's happening across this land. People are, the expression is waking up, if you want to call it that, but some people have known this stuff for a long time and just haven't found a place to talk about it, or enough people get together with and make something of it. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to make a movement. We're here to move things in this land toward a free and prosperous people, the way that God designed it, the way God commanded us to be, and to shut down this tyranny that actively undercuts the power of the people. So thanks again for being here, and thank yourself for carving out the time. This is going to be really inspiring and really informational as well. So yeah, tonight is focused on one of several strategies that people are experimenting with, practicing, trying to undercut or get outside of the oppression of the vehicle code. So every state has its vehicle code, and people have been recognizing that the vehicle code is clearly not constitutional and is a fraud upon the American people, have been trying various ways, from straight up just talking to the the policy enforcement, law enforcement, whatever you want to call it, police, cop, highway patrol, who pulls you over. Just trying to, first of all, try to reason with them. That's one avenue. People have tried taking their tickets and writing on them, "I do not contract with you," recognizing that there's some sort of implied contract that's being happening. And some people have had success with that. The ticket disappears. Other people have not had success with that same strategy. People have done things that are very creative, like covering up their license plates while going through toll plazas and different things like that. Just anything we can do. Now, the courtroom is obviously a big place where things get played out, and that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. Our presenter went to traffic court, and he brought some distinctions of jurisdiction and the rights, our God-given rights, that are some of which are spelled out, fortunately for us, in the Bill of Rights, in particular, the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. We hear a lot about the First and the Second and the Fourth and the Fifth, but the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution addresses directly what goes on in a criminal prosecution. It was obviously a thing that our founding fathers put a big priority on because, of course, the powers that be, government, overreach, tyrants, are going to try to criminalize behavior that isn't criminal. And I'm just going to go, when I say criminal, I'm just going to go with the standard definition that there has to minimally be a party that's been damaged, harmed in some way. So, of course, tyrants are going to want their enemies to be subject to them, and they want to be able to criminalize you and imprison you or fine you in order to weaken you and oppress you. And that's why the founding fathers created the Sixth Amendment. It was so important to say, look, there's certain fundamental characteristics of a fair trial that we, the people, have a right to, and they articulated it. We can all read it together. If you parse it out, there's actually 9 different rights going on here when it comes to the freedoms that we have from being persecuted in a criminal way. So the text reads, "In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation," that's the important one tonight, "and to be confronted with the witnesses against him," that's also relevant for our story tonight, "and to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense." There's a lot going on in this passage. Very intelligent men who wrote these words had lots of experience with courts, and they had lots of experiences with courts being misused and abused against the people. And that's why they crafted this very important statement. So tonight we're going to be learning about the idea of having a right to be informed of the nature and cause of the charges against you. If you say I'm a criminal, then I minimally need to know the nature and the cause of the charges. And further, I need to know, in terms of witnesses, who's the injured party. The primary witness, right, would be the injured party. And on the roadways, we know these road pirates are basically revenue generating agents, and they're criminalizing behavior that isn't criminal. A standard example of being 5 miles over the speed limit, having a frame around your license plate that may be slightly obscure as part of it, or all these different random statutory rules and regulations that the government is only too happy to utilize to shake down some of your money, some of your hard-earned money. Most people will just pay that ticket, right? I mean, how many people have gotten a traffic ticket, and maybe when you first get it, you think, "Oh, I'm gonna fight this. It's not fair." But then, because of the inconvenience of it, and life happens, and the amount is not so great that you can't squeeze it out, so you end up just saying, "Screw it, I'm just gonna pay it." And I don't have the statistics on it, but I imagine like 90% of people just pay their tickets. And then some minority go into court And then even when they get into court, the best they can get is maybe they think they're going to appeal to the sentiment of the judge or something, and maybe get a reduction in the fee because of the financial hardship or what have you. And so, because we recognize that these courtrooms are just administrative procedural venues that are there just to take your money, we know that the judges there are going to try to get all the money out of you. But if they think that they can get half of it out of you, they'll take half and just to get you out of there, and know that they're making some kind of money off of you. The entire thing is a fraud. Let's not kid ourselves. The entire thing is a money generating scheme. And it's operating the public, but it's a corporate entity, cities, states, and counties that issue these citations. So let's just understand the background of what we're dealing with here. Really understand the context for this video that I'm about to show you. I don't know how many of you had a chance to watch it, but this video is extraordinary. And this is a man has been practicing pro se law. He's defending himself. He walks into the traffic court, and we're going to be hearing from him after the video about what the experience was like, what led him to it, and what he's thought about since, like how he might do it differently. And of course, we're going to want to hear your impressions as well. Maybe you have some analysis of the video that you'd like to add to it, and some questions and answer period we're going to do as well with our guest, Ryan Thor. So let's take a look at this a little bit more than 5-minute video of what happens when he walks into this court.
$25 business will be on that. Good job. And then we want to carry your license, or is there a hold?
For the record, my name is Ryan Thor. I'm the living man. I am not the entity known as Ryan Michael Thor, just to clear that. I am here on special appearance under threat, duress, and coercion to challenge subject matter jurisdiction and also personal jurisdiction as well. I filed my paperwork for you on Friday, and the clerk illegally denied it. I went again this morning and filed my paperwork again for you. The clerk again illegally denied it, even though I gave her a notice telling her it's a felony for her not to accept my paperwork. And actually, it's in law, it's considered filed when I gave it to her. So well, Your Honor, I mean, I'm going to have to ask a few questions first, which first of all is I need to understand the nature and the cause of the charges against me, as well as I need to know, is this a civil jurisdiction or criminal jurisdiction?
Jurisdiction.
Criminal.
Traffic infraction court, so no possibility of going to jail on any of this. You settled one of your counts. We just prove a correction on August 26, 2022, or Ryan Michael Thor did. If you're saying, are you saying that's not you?
Ryan Thor is the living man. Ryan Michael Thor is the defendant in error. It's the artificial person. So thank you, Your Honor. Let the record of the court show that the action against me is criminal. And now I have another question, because the Constitution grants us two different criminal jurisdictions, okay? One criminal jurisdiction is under the common law, and the other is under the criminal jurisdiction of admiralty or military tribunal venue from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. Well, I need to know which of these two jurisdictions that you intend to try me. It's very important because they're done different ways. The rules of civil procedure are very different in a criminal jurisdiction, obviously for common law, and a military.
No. So you just need to show, did you be able to cure your license with the DMV, or you don't know?
Your Honor, I need to get these other questions answered. I need to know what the jurisdiction is, and I need to know also who the injured party is. The nature and cause of this. I need to know who the injured party is. I need to know who's bringing the claim.
How about, okay, the state is. So here's the deal. Do you want to have a trial date? I can give you many trial different dates, and you can come in and you can ask all the questions, and they have to prove the charges against you. So thank
you, Your Honor, but I don't think you'd be violating your oath of office by doing your duty under the Constitution. Okay, I'll
take all the time in the world to do, because you Adam. But it was on a.
You know, Your Honor, I just motioned for dismissal because if this is a criminal jurisdiction, as you're claiming, I need to see a verified complaint and I need from the injured party, and I have to have an opportunity to face my accuser, as you mentioned at the beginning of this entire hearing. So who is the injured party? That's the question. Who's the injured party? Why am I here? I don't understand why I'm here.
You paid $440 and 32 cents.
Yes, that's what he's paid to me.
All right, so what else? So we just have count one and count two, and you should approve the
Correct.
All right, sir, I'm gonna just, exercise, my discretion. I'm gonna dismiss count one and dismiss count two and just order the fees that you've already paid to, cover court costs. Okay?
So
No charges are pending against you. If it's dismissed, just suggest it.
So I'm letting the record show that the defendant, Ryan Michael Thor, with case CMZ 606-406, all charges are dismissed. Is that correct? Well, those fees are bail and they should be returned after dismissal.
Okay. You know what? I don't have a problem with returning your case. I got it.
Thank you.
All right,
$25.
wait. All right. Have a good day, Mr. Thor.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your time.
Next case, Matthew Martinez, CMD 30058. Mr. Martinez, points for the out of your hands, accountant. Mr. You have, did you have an address change? The money comes back to whatever address you put in whatever, whoever the person was. So.
The address is proper.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Matthew Martinez.
All right, isn't that fascinating? So he had those charges dismissed. I want to hear, eventually what you guys all think about what actually happened and how it came to be that those charges were dismissed. I do have to point out, just technically speaking, in a courtroom, he made a motion to dismiss. So, and you can speculate about what was going on in the judge's mind or what was going on in his mind, because it's kind of a game being played between the two of them, you can see. But in the end, if he didn't make a motion to dismiss, the dismissal wouldn't have happened. So that's something very important to notice about how things happen in a courtroom. The other thing that happened that was interesting to note, if you notice, she was trying to, first off, delay him. Did you hear that? She's like, "Oh, I'd like to, have other cases come before you and then deal with you." We've heard that before, particularly with people using this strategy. That, when you ask, is this civil or is this criminal? The first thing they say is, well, okay, why don't you wait till we talk to the other people? We presume it's because they don't want the other people to hear about what the strategy is that could win. And then when that didn't work, she tried to talk about his license, because that license, of course, is where the implied contract is. He didn't let that dissuade him either. Yeah. The court case was fantastic to watch. And Ryan's with us now. I thank you so much for coming to be with us, Ryan, taking the time out. You have inspired a lot of people. Just your moxie, just getting up there and doing it is a big deal. And for everyone here, it's practice. And, a lot of people recognize too that you were in the traffic court, which compared to a lot of other court scenarios, maybe you're up on stronger criminal charges. It's a relatively low pressure. You're not going to be thrown in jail. So it's a great place to get into the courtroom and to practice the concepts that you're learning, that we're all learning. You do research, and in the end, you have to find out, quote unquote, does it work? But what you really did was you're standing up for your rights, and you're doing what every good American should do. So thank you for being a representation and for videotaping it, for video recording and having the presence of mind to video record it so that we could all appreciate it and learn from it together. So we hope to learn a lot, just practical things today from you. We hope to be inspired even more by, just who you are and what you represent.
Thanks, Clint. I appreciate the invite to come here and share some time with everybody here. So, boy, you said it, it's a game. You said it, you nailed it. It's a game. And I will say though, they can put you in jail in that court just like any other court though. And it's always the fear, and the fear, that's what keeps people from doing any of this, the fear of jail, right? And I'm sure everybody's spent the night at a real shitty host house before, you know what I mean? So how bad can it be if you end up going to jail for a night? It's not going to be, there's a lot of bad experiences out there, but this is where we start building on them. And you may not have to have that experience either. And there's a lot of things that we're, me and some other folks that I'm progressing with in this journey. We've got declaratory judgments we can do before we even get to court. So that was kind of the big thing for me was, well, how do I get something on the record before I have an issue, with a policy officer who thinks I'm doing business on the road and I'm not. And so that's where the declaratory judgments come in. Anybody can write up a declaratory judgment and send it in and get a ruling on it. And now you got a piece of paper. When they say papers, please, you go, there's my declaratory judgment. I'm not in commerce. I'm not driving at the pleasure of the governor. And that hopefully will give people a little bit more courage to, do away, rescind that driver's license, rescind that, that registration that's not necessary. It's only necessary for a commercial vehicle. I would definitely say the biggest thing is, yes, it's a game. We're actors. I've been an actor for 23 years. I never got a chance to play a lawyer. I played a skinhead Nazi killer. I played, Latin handsome charming man, and I've done all kinds of different roles, but never played the attorney, right? And this time I prepared for it. I put together a game plan. I had answers I knew what she was going to do. I know how the playbook goes. I know how they try to ask you questions. Well, what about that license? Did you ever take care of that? You caught that, right? So, and that's how they do it. They get you, or what's your name? Is Ryan Michael Thor here? That's me. Boom, they got you. It's over. You know what I mean? So, and in that litigation field, now I will say what's happened in the last 4 weeks of my life have changed the way I do everything now. I don't do litigation stuff anymore. I'm in federal court right now. Actually, they broke my door down and took my home, and so now I'm in federal court. But I went through writing all my pleadings and everything for that, and it's all come back to the equity side of law for me, and for all the other people that I'm dealing with, because they can hem you up and they can jam you up with all their little games that they play. Like they wanted me to write my pleading a 5th time. Like it's sharp, it's to the point. It doesn't need to be written again. They're just playing games with me because I put myself in a capacity to be the trustee. And once I become the trustee, co-trustee, I have no benefits. I'm not the beneficiary anymore. And that's how they're treating me. So we're changing the way that we do that a little bit. However, and I'll tell you what, like I have a due date of November 17th. So, I'll definitely be able to check back in with you after that and see, because like I said, they broke my door down. They took my home. They kicked me out. They took my shelter. I filed a federal lawsuit against the judge, the clerk, the law firm, 2 attorneys, the county of Orange, California, one of the biggest counties in America, and just the way that they do things. Like I had all the statutes and codes. I knew everything that they did wrong, yet they won't even respond to it. They pretend as though I'm not even there. And I realize it's because I came in there like a lawyer. So they're treating me like a lawyer. And we don't belong there. We don't belong in that capacity. So there's a lot of things I would do over again. And just like this video, yes, I stated the law. And what we've come to understand is that your conduct is what invokes equity. Basically fairness, equality, and you go in there and you invoke the fairness and equality, and it comes from studying trust law and studying what is a beneficiary, what is a trustee, how do I invoke the trustee to do their job so they fulfill their duty, which is to take care of the beneficiary. We shouldn't be in there. And I don't know if you guys talk a lot about that on here, so I definitely want to serve what it is you're doing and build up what you're doing and not confuse people too much. So I ran it for a minute. Please.
Yeah, no, that's great. I would like, would you please take just a second to describe the characters in the courtroom? Who's the beneficiary? Who's the trustee?
Oh yeah, well, your judge is, well, all of them who are working for the court are trustees. All of them who are working for corporations are a trustee because it's an extension of the corporation of the United States, which the sub corporation, the state of whatever it is, they're a sub corporation. Then you got the county, which is another political subdivision. Then you got your municipality, which is another political subdivision. It's just all the tentacles, right? But they're all trustees if you invoke them to be trustees. Otherwise, they're administrative tribunals and they can do whatever they want, you know. But what happened when I went in there is, yes, I kept a calm demeanor. I asked questions, but what she really saw was I was a man who came in fairness and said, who did I hurt? Where's the injured party? So just my conduct invoked her to perform equity. You know, it turned the court into an equity court. All courts can be whatever it is your conduct brings it. You know, so if you're in there and you're being a belligerent, and I'm a sovereign, righteous man of the royal power of Jesus Christ Almighty, and you know, you're one USC 1 insane. If you haven't looked up one USC 1, that's a good one because it tells you you're insane. And when we are talking about things we don't know the definitions of all the words, which is what I'm learning now, is that, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that estate means you're standing, you know. And so if you don't understand what estate means, and you're standing in court is everything, and if you claim your equitable interest in that particular, yeah, there you go, I love this one, the word insane. That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. You know, we pulled up the definition of adult the other day, and it was anyone who's mentally feeble, you know, and it's under health and whatever. Anyway, it's under the health code.
Health
and they can apply the health code to anything, you know. At any time they want to say that you're insane, they'll question your health. Are you okay? Now they're using the definition of adult, which is, you know, a mentally challenged person. So, you know, it's really important that we learn the definitions, because yes, like I said, you got your main trustee is going to be the judge, right? So it's important to acknowledge, and this is what I'm learning too, is there's paperwork. So my old paperwork was, I'm not a corporation, I'm not a person, you know, I don't have a contract with you guys. Now that's all true. It's all true. But what I'm about to find out for 100% sure in the next couple of weeks, and what other people in our community, in this equity community that I know have had success, because I've heard firsthand, you know, testimony of their processes that they do, and getting them to acknowledge the appointment of trustee. They all know they're trustees. So once we acknowledge the appointment of the trustee, both in writing and by our words, you know, and the simple thing that we tell people is this a public matter or is this a private matter? Mm-hmm. Because if it's a public matter, it has nothing to do with me. And if it's a private matter, wrong venue. So it goes a lot deeper, but just in general, yeah, you can appoint or acknowledge the appointment of the attorney, make them the public trustee, acknowledge the appointment of the judge, make them the public trustee, let them all know you're the beneficiary, and let them settle the matter. But again, like I said, it's all about your conduct. So until you really fully understand what those definitions mean and how that applies to you, even biblically speaking, until you really understand that, you know, the power won't be behind it. They will test you. That's why I'm in federal court now. They tested me. They're like, oh yeah, okay, let's see how you deal with this one.
Yes, I heard you mention the federal case in your update video. Ryan's thoughts about, you know, after the fact, after that courtroom encounter, and yeah, you learned a lot. And yeah, first of all, just in terms of the trustee and the beneficiary, isn't there need to be a grantor? So just to fill that out, who's the grantor?
We are the grantor of the trust. Without us, there is no trust.
Okay.
We're the grantor and the beneficiary.
So we, the people, are the grantors, and then the individual in front of the court would be the beneficiary.
You, the people. It's each individual man and woman has the capacity to be the grantor and the beneficiary. It depends if you invoke it or not. But the people in general, like, it's not automatic. Yeah, you feel what I'm saying? It has to be each individual man and woman has to come to the understanding of what a beneficiary is and how if you read the trust law and the Delaware trust code and your state trust code, you will start to identify these definitions and start to realize how it is they're doing what they're doing. And yeah, you play multiple roles, and we can only be the grantor. God gave us, we're the gift to this earth. You know what I mean?
And let's talk a little bit about what happened before the court case, because this document set, I think you even said in your update video, the ultimate strategy is not to go into court at all.
Yeah.
Right. So here we are talking about how to succeed in court. And, it might happen that you will end up in court one day and you might choose to, but there are ways to avoid court, or at least to do things before you walk into the court to prepare the court for what they're about to see, which is very rare. It's very rare to have someone like you walk into their court. 99.9% of the time people come in, they pay their fees, they get intimidated, the judge says whatever they normally say, they maybe knock off some of the fees, whatever they do, just to collect as much money as they can, and then that's their day. And then somebody like you comes along. So both the documentation that you presented, that you filed with the court, and which is also relevant, is the encounter you had with the clerk, because when we commoner law group students in 2020 were filing ex parte suits against their employers for firing them because they refused the vax. People without a lawyer, and so their paperwork wasn't like what the court wanted, with the cover sheet and all the different little rules and things, and they were rejected. But we like you, we called them out on that. So I'd like to hear not only about the documentation, but also your interaction with the clerk, that you kind of had to force them to take your paperwork.
Yeah. First of all, just remember to have, in everything we do, we have to have grace and understand, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Most of them don't really know what they're doing. And when
Amen.
when you get someone who's a little cranky, and like this woman that I had to deal with, she was a younger gal, and she got the supervisor, and the supervisor is the one that shut it down. And I was like, whoa, you're both in deep doo-doo now, So then when I came back on Monday, I just took my papers and I just underneath, I said, there you go, that's for you. And and I had everybody always asks, well, how did you record? That's magic. That's how I record. So every interaction I have, that now I have this little thing on the bottom. It's a lanyard. So now I wear a lanyard, and this thing stays right here no matter what I do, no matter where I go, because I've got the supervising clerks that they what's the word I'm looking for? They backdated paperwork. They added a judge a month ago that was never there, and I have the judge on video saying he was just added that day. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because they're saying they added you a month ago, and I know that's not true. Then I had the clerk admit that he's like, yeah, I backdated everything because they should have given you a judge a month ago. And I'm like, that's not an honest record. That's, what is the word I'm looking for? I'm drawing a big brain fart, but
Corruption,
trustee malfeasance. Like, I mean, you can go on and on and on. It's it's official. Yeah, official. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. So, and that's another thing, is going through this federal lawsuit that I'm going through, I can't tell you how many thousand, more than 1,000 hours studying all the statutes and codes and getting all the laws that they broke. When finding out that equity, I don't need to go through all the laws that they broke with equity. I just need to tell them how I've been harmed, and they will do the accounting, and they will be the ones to settle the matter. So they're just throwing that in there. But
so the documents that you sent in advance.
So the documents I sent in advance, particularly for that case, were, the affidavit of non-corporate existence, right? So I'm not a corporation, I'm not a person, I'm a man. And I don't say living man anymore, because I don't know any other type of men who talk. So now I just drop the living part. I'm like, yeah, I could say living soul. But if I'm a man and I'm talking, I'm already alive. So I try to reduce the amount of talking I do too. And if I ever went back in there, I'd simply say, is this a public matter or a private matter? I'm not here to discuss my private business in the public venue. It's, you know, and that would really be the end of it, along with the paperwork I put in, which what I used to do was put in a quo warranto, by what authority, right? Same thing with the attorneys, you know, unauthorized practice of law. What are you guys doing here? You know, I'm not an entity. Attorneys can only practice law with other entities. Once they go outside of that jurisdiction, and now it's unauthorized practice of law. At no time can they interact with a man and have it be an authorized practice of law. So yeah, now my paperwork consists, well, what is about to, again, I'm speaking, I'm about to be putting it in, so I wouldn't share a ton on what I'm doing until like I can say, this is what I did, this is how it worked, but basically it's a trustee acknowledgement of the judge in the state case where they stole my home, my shelter. I mean, I had all the laws there. I disqualified the judge. I said, look at the law. If there's even a hint of impartiality, you must disqualify yourself. You're a bar attorney. They're a bar attorney. There's already impartiality there. You're gone. And she said, no, I'm not. You know, she wrote back, you know, I sent her a private notice, right? Because we want to try to, it's a private matter. So I'm trying to notice her in private, like, hey, you're making a mistake. You're bringing a private shelter into the public domain. This is not owned by the county. This is not your business. So if you look in your own county charter, the very first thing you're going to find with a county charter is the county has jurisdiction over county stuff only. That's it. So then I wrote the governor of the state of California and I said, hey, is this address 425 Fair Drive? Is this your property? Nope. Oh, really? That's interesting. Well, these people took my home and they're saying it's their property. So if it's not county property, if it's not state property, it's not county property, right? So they said no records responsive. So then I went a step further and I said, you know what, here, let me just read this to you because you get a kick out of this. So this is where we start doing records requests to bolster, it's just to provide a record, let's put it that way. Okay, because what we're doing is we're making a record that your presumptions and your assumptions that I'm the entity need to be thrown out the door. I want you to know that I'm living, I'm breathing. That means I'm a man, I'm not an entity, and I'm no longer going to let you make these assumptions. So I went a step forward and I said, you know what, my home is not my shelter. Home is a different definition, so you don't want that one. My shelter is not in the state. And by the way, provide the record for which I, Ryan Michael Thor, or any variation of the name, including Ryan M. Thor, Ryan Thor, is given express written consent to be governed by the laws of the state of California, that I'm employed or contract for the state of California, that I have minimum contacts with the state of California, that I operate in interstate and foreign commerce at the pleasure of the governor, and that I am within or residing in the state of California. Wouldn't you know it, Mr. Thor, DGS has no responsive documents to your request. Oh, so I'm not subject to any of the laws of the state of California either, even though you guys broke my door down with a tool, stole my shelter, claiming the authority of the state of California when it doesn't apply to me. How'd you bring me into your court venue? I didn't consent. You have to have consent. The government exists by the consent of the governed only. So they must have written consent somewhere that I agreed to participate in their phony baloney administrative court hearing, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever showed it to me, ever. That's in my federal lawsuit too. It's like, I never gave consent. I'm not a person, you know, all the regular bells and whistles. And so now I'm changing direction like a hard 180. Me and this other woman who's fighting eviction, and another one of our friends in California, he already won his case. He stopped an eviction case because, again, if you look at the word rent means a charge. Then you go look up definition of charge. A charge means a tax or a penalty. Then you go look up, who does tax and penalties apply to? Corporations. So how am I getting a charge, tax, penalty that applies to a corporation? Well, we've agreed to pay it. We've been fooled into paying this thing we call rent. Leviticus 25 says, "The land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine, say the Lord." So I've never seen any landowner with a bill of sale from God. So
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's a very juicy philosophical property rights and all that's very topical. But what I definitely want to underscore about something you said, and it's for everyone to, if you didn't already know it, when you're in court, your job is to create a record. Everything has to be put on the record. And I noticed in your video, for example, when the judge, for example, when she said, this is a criminal case, you said, okay, let the court record, show that the judge said that this is a criminal. And then when she dismissed the counts, you said, okay, let the court record show that they were dismissed. And so, you have to have it on record. Everything else is hearsay. The court, basically, which is cool because there's an objective reality that everyone can see. And if we're going to have justice at all, we have to have a record. Otherwise, it's hearsay and it's one person's word over another. And in that world, in the world of like one person's word over another, it's going to be the guy with the most power, the most influence, most force that's going to be able to win. So it's really important principle of justice that in a venue where justice is being served, if there is such a place, it has to be put on the objective record that everyone can see. And that's why when you were filing with the clerk, that you made sure that your documents got filed with the clerk. So I just wanted to really underscore that element of basic understanding of how to proceed, how to act, how to behave when you're dealing with courts of justice.
And remember, you're acting too. So go in there as a fucking actor. You know what I mean? Go in there and play the role of what you should know that you are. And if you don't know that you are, just practice. Practice makes perfect. What do they say? Fake it till you make it, right? So go in there as the most powerful man or woman in that room, because you are. They're all public servants, but they don't serve the slaves. Right? So you got to go in there and tell them you're the master. They're the servant. And you got to have that attitude. And I don't know if I really drove it home with the clerk. She was a little bit bitchy. She got her supervisor. The supervisor came over. He's like, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, fine. I came back on Monday and I just took the papers along with a notice. I gave her a notice. It's considered filed the moment it passes through this window. And I just went, and I had it recorded, and I said, you got the filings. I'm going in there. You better get them to the judge, because I'm going to tell her I gave it to you. See you later. I got this video evidence too, by the way. So you have to be polite, be very graceful, but you do have to be assertive. And just like the judge, you heard her try to talk over me a few times, and I just kind of turned it up a little bit more. I can do this too, lady. But I still kept calm. And when she brought it down, I brought it down. It's this little dance we're doing together. And
yeah, I'm fascinated by the fact that you're an actor and that you're bringing that whole world with you. I'm thinking of some, soap opera, where they hand the script to the actors at the very last minute. You wrote into the script some new lines. But so yeah, it's a game. It's a big illusion.
yes,
we've said it here many times. The two factors that they use over and over again to control us are intimidation and our presumed ignorance. And because we are so often ignorant, and because we are often so intimidatable, we're so afraid, they use those two things to win every time. So if you're not intimidated and you're educated sufficiently, you're good to go toe to toe. But your federal case tells me something else too, that it tells me that they're willing to use intimidation tactics. It's a wide range of, when I say intimidation, that's everything from just raising their voice or trying to use some kind of language that you're unfamiliar with, some Latin or something in a court case, in a courtroom.
right.
To literally physically taking you out of your home. So I just want to acknowledge that when I say intimidation, I mean to the extent of imprisoning you and taking all your stuff. So I just want to acknowledge.
But don't fear it. You cannot fear it. If you fear losing what you've got, then you don't believe God's got something better for you. That's it. Period. That is the end of it. If you're not living an equitable life, if you're going to get a driver's license because you're scared, then you don't believe in God. That's it. You know, and I know it's easy for me to say that, and you're like, oh, that's not fair. And it's just the truth. I don't care if it's fair or not, you know. God set this up, you know, he's the light, he's the dark. He said this whole thing works because of his design. And who am I to argue with it? And you know what? He asked for me to be faithful. He asked for me to be diligent, you know, and to trust. And you know what? I had to trust them taking everything. They took all my careers during COVID. I was on set and they fired me off of a big, huge commercial that was going to set me up for a while. Instead, I had to make the choice to say, I'm not doing that. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not letting you stick anything in me and tell me that I'm sick when I'm perfectly fine. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And they said, you know what? Go home. And that was the last, I think that was the last professional acting job I had. And that was like 2 years ago. And my phone's not ringing because of that. That's for sure. But you have to be willing to walk away and stand on your principles. You can't catch what God's given to you if you got clenched fists with all your things. You know, I got my truck and my house and my old lady and all, you know, and my girlfriend walked away from me when I lost my home. She's like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, okay. You know, I mean, I didn't plan to lose right away. You know, I planned to duke them out a little bit, but they were so fast and I was so new and I didn't really realize, you know, just how fast these guys were going to move. And but the bottom line was you just get up every day and you go, you know what? I'm okay. I had a friend who let me sleep on his couch. I'm still on his couch, you know, it's been like 4 months. And you know, God also gave us food. There's an overabundance of food. And what do they try to do at those instrumentalities of the United States called cash registers? They try to charge you. Are you one to be charged? Do you even know what the word you means? If you haven't looked up you might want to find out that the word you means one who owes an obligation to the United States. Don't be a you.
Oh my goodness.
Be a one. Yes, we need to define
one.
words. Be one. Be one.
Yep,
Neil was the one.
I have to say, my spirituality has deepened. I thought I had a pretty good spirituality because you know that like the kind of spirituality that makes you feel good about life and you know feel grateful about life and to forgive others. And you know, there's a lot of spirituality that's really strong. But when you're tested like you are, you said, when you're tested with material things being taken from you, you know, that's when the real test happens. And I have to say that the people who are here today with us on this this wonderful gathering are, for the most part, people who have a very strong relationship with their higher power, with a God that gives us the authority to walk on this earth with dignity and to stand up against these tyrants. They're I'd say the most faithful people are the ones that we must become and that we must rely on as a people. We need each other. We need to know that like I now know you as someone that I can count.
I'm just teasing. I'm teasing.
Yeah, I know one, and now I know one more. I know one more who's you know, who's convicted in the same way that I am, and that gives me a lot of hope. It gives me a lot of inspiration and encouragement to keep going, because I'm not the only one. You know, there's something you get. Something you've just come home to roost, that it's the truth about who we are. And that's the kind of thing that no tyrant can defeat. And I think that's why we're such a threat to them as well.
I don't think we're a threat. I don't think it's a threat. Like I said, my mind is changing about a whole bunch of things, including them being the best. I'm sorry, say that again.
That they perceive us as a threat, because we're not going to just roll over.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like I had a lady chase me out of the grocery store the other day. You didn't pay. And I just wanted to say, ma'am, there's nothing to pay with. What are you talking about? You know, I couldn't really get into it with her, but she couldn't understand how I just boldly walked right out the door, you know what I mean? And there were a couple other people standing around, they're all confused and they're just scratching their head. And it's like, you know, go read Department of Agriculture. What's the job of the USDA? It's to distribute food to the people. It doesn't say anything about paying, doesn't say anything about charging. You know, those are taxes and penalties. And who do they apply to? We know they apply to the corporation. They don't apply to us. And yeah, so in that aspect, you're going to have people that are upset. They're confused. They don't understand, because that's how this entire ruse works. It's all based on confusion. Just like the motor vehicle code saying this applies to employees of the state. And I show it to someone and they can't wrap my head up. Well, you got to have a license to make sure you can drive. You don't hurt people, right? You know, and I'm like, no, that's not what that's for. You know, I mean, I was 12 on the farm driving, you know, tractors, giant tractors. And, you know, are you kidding me? Like, I needed a license to figure that out? No. So, you know,
I'll be honest, I'm confusing. I mean, you're blowing my mind. There was definitely a surprise tonight that I would be questioning quote unquote property rights, where you're talking about rental leases not being lawful, or somehow not being enforceable. And then I think you just implied that you went to a retail establishment and you took things from the retail establishment without paying for it.
You did first of all, it's already distributed to the people. There is nothing to pay with. We have the rights, titles, and interest.
Well, I know there's no money, if that's what you mean.
Exactly. So if the job of the United States Department of Agriculture is to gather the best seeds and plants and distribute them to the people. Now, when you read the United States Code, you will not find the word people in there very often. What word do we usually find in there? Persons, right? So when they say people, that's when you perk up and you listen. So after a series of notices to all the different grocery stores, you let them all know and you say, hey, look, here's my conundrum, right? There's no money to pay with anything. And the Department of Agriculture asked me to help them out with waste. And you guys are going to be throwing out food. Why? You know how much food they throw out? They throw out if something's too big, if something's too small, if something's too food literally grows on trees. What is this idea that we have that somehow food is scarce, or that we need to, or there's somehow we lose dominion over it when a corporation goes and gathers it up? How does it suddenly become theirs? It doesn't. It's all a mental gymnastics games that they're playing on everybody. And if you believe it, same thing with going and claiming a piece of land that nobody's there. If nobody's there, a corporation can't swoop in and say, now you owe us. What do I owe you? Oh, you owe me 1 million doll hairs. Well, what is a doll hair? Okay, if we look up dollar, go look at the etymology of the word dollar. Dollar is it's a measurement of weight. Dollar is actually a peso. The S sign with a line through it, that's a peso symbol. Why are we dealing with peso symbols? And if it's a measurement of weight, it's $1 million of what? So if you're saying you want me to pay $300 for food that God already gave to me and gave me dominion over as a man, that somehow some corporation is suggesting that I should give them a tax or a penalty, you have to ask them $300 of what? You got to give me something. $300 of gold? Well, yeah. The legislation already took that out. So we don't have gold or silver. So what do you want me to give you $300 of what? So we have to challenge our minds. And once we get an understanding of words, we realize that they taught us in the public fool system to think about money a different way. That's the first thing I remember in first grade. They're teaching you how to count out coins and they call it money, right? Mm-hmm. Right. That's why they use the word charges. They don't use the word money. They use the word charges. They'll tell you exactly what it is. But if you don't have comprehension of what the word charge means, and rent, I had to dig for hours before I found the statute where it said rent is equivalent to charge equaling rent. It was worded really bizarre. I think I said it right. Rent equivalent to charge
Right.
equals rent. And then you go look at up the word charge and you realize it doesn't apply to us. They're not talking to us. So why are we assuming that we're supposed to stop at these little registers, which are called instrumentalities of the United States? And then if you go look up Federal Reserve notes, you realize in their own law, it says only a banker can exchange a federal note with another banker. So you're actually breaking the law by using Federal Reserve notes. There's no provision within the code that allows a man, a private man, only an agent can use Federal Reserve notes. Now, do we stop it overnight? No, of course not. You know what I mean? Like same thing with traveling. And you guys are all here for traveling. I'm sorry, I know I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm just kind of letting you know how things have progressed in the most amazing way. Because then you realize I don't need to hang on to all my things. I can receive God's gift and I can trust him, and I can go look up a house online where nobody's living and I can go claim it. All I have to do is put it on the record that I have equitable interest in there. And that's all you really need to do, you know? And so that's kind of what we're doing. And that'll be my next step too, because I'm going to need some more shelter now that they took the other one away. But as I get through with my court case and stuff, I'll be able to share with people a little bit more. Right now, they need to settle my case and they need to make me whole again after what they've done. And but yeah, there's a whole nother world beyond. I thought I was just going to learn how to travel without the regulations and restriction, and it has blossomed into something I never would have imagined. I never thought I was going to go through and learn all the tricks that they've been doing that take my energy from me on a regular basis. Rent being one of them. We're all worthy of a shelter.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that once a person understands the vehicle code fraud, that it starts to, you see the same pattern across the board and so many different things. So that's how it started with you, was really with the traffic code was the thing that started it, and then it blossomed to all these other areas. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Once you realize that there's fraud over here and that they're not talking about you here, then you can go look over here. Oh, they're not talking about me here. Oh, wait, they're not talking about me here over. Oh, so none of this stuff involves me. Oh, okay. And then you'll get things like, oh, well, somebody's got to pay for it. It's set up. Do you know how many trillions and trillions of dollars? Like, I mean, just the California, state of California, right? You guys ever heard of Clint Richardson? Did anybody listen to Clint Richardson?
Yes, Corporation Nation, or a CAFR, a CAFR or ACFR now. It's Annual Comprehensive Financial Report.
That's it, Noah. Bam. They have so much money, it's ridiculous. For somebody to even suggest for a moment that, well, somebody had to pay for that. Yeah, you did. Your autograph, your gift of being here is what allows the corporations to do what the corporations do. God already gave us everything we needed to be okay, and then some, beyond your wildest dreams. It's only our restrictions we put in our mind because we've been taught incorrectly, and then we just feed on that. My own mom called me a criminal. She's like, "You're a criminal. I think you should be paying rent." And I'm like, well, I would imagine you should have. Well, I don't think you should be taking from somebody. I'm like, it's not a somebody. It's an entity. It's a small group of people that devised this plan to go and make people spend their energy for things that God already gave us a right to. We have a right to it, not the corporations. The corporations only have the rights we bestow upon them. And at any time, anytime we can take it back.
Well, I have a couple more questions for you, and I know other people would have questions. Noah's here, who I'd love to have hear, his reflections on what we've covered tonight. And in fact, the topic he just brought up is a whole big one. We could do a whole event just on
surprise.
Great. That's a great topic. I mean, I've been wanting to delve into that one for sure. So I have some questions, and I know other people do too. So get ready, folks, to have some questions and comments. Maybe people are perturbed by what you're saying, because it is.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know how that goes, right? Not just
yeah, of course.
Even
Bring
I'm
it on.
Even I'm sitting here thinking, wow, what a wonderful opportunity to open my mind. I'm always looking for ways to broaden my mind and hear perspectives that I'm not used to hearing. And I know David also has his own personal experience. So one more question. There was this question about in the court case about bail, right? So after she dismissed the case, she said, "Okay, but we're going to apply this money that you've already paid to court costs," right? They just
Like that.
she was just like, "Okay, whatever. I don't care if you charge us or not, as long as we get the money." And then you said, "No, wait a minute. This is bail money. If the charges are dismissed, that means they get the money back." What was that money? Because I don't know if I have gotten a ticket. It's been forever since I got a traffic ticket, but you pay anything, and if you're going to court, right? There's no payment. So where did you get $400+ that you paid? What was that for? How did that happen?
Bail money is the surety that they, instead of taking your body, they take your bail money, and it's to make sure you show up at court. So
you didn't have to just show up at court. You had to pay first, and then
so let me tell you it's an interesting story, actually. So where do I begin? So I had stopped. I didn't renew my license. I let it expire. I let my license plate expire. I let everything expire because I just knew that I'm not supposed to do that. I'd literally be lying if I, got those things again. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I was learning from somebody else at the time called George Gordon. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of George Gordon School of Common Law. Well, don't follow them because they don't do the right to travel thing. They get somebody else to register their plates for them. I found out later. But at the time, they were like, "You're not ready to go to court. Don't go to court. You're going to lose," and all this stuff. And I thought, well, all right. So what I did was I went ahead. I'm trying to remember. I think I had paid the bail so that it gave me an extension of time or something so I could figure it out. And then what I did was I did still have insurance at the time. So I went ahead and showed him a copy of the insurance. So that's why the third charge said, what did that say? It said it was dismissed with proof, right? Proof of insurance. So that's what that was. So I had already given them money, and that's why she was confused too. She's like, "But he paid bail. Like, why is he coming in here and doing this after he did that? You showed us your insurance and you paid bail. Like you're on the train. Like, what's going on here, buddy? And that's really what happened. Was at the end of the day, when I saw those people who were telling me I wasn't ready for court, and they were using a workaround method, having someone else register their car, I went, "That's crap. These guys don't know what they're talking about." I said, "You know what? I'm going to stand on what I know to be true. And I know that there's no injured party. I haven't done anything wrong. I know that these people this is all smoke and mirrors. It's all an illusion. And I just have to be courageous and not be afraid and go in there and prepare myself." So that's kind of how all that happened. And I knew right away, the minute she says dismissed, they're supposed to return your bail. So when she said, "I'm just going to keep it for court costs," I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so. So, and that was interesting that the check came from the Orange County Public Trust. Oh, no public trust, people tell me. You don't say. There's a public trust for everyone. That's why everything is taken care of. Your job as a man and a woman, a child of God, is to just be wonderful. And if you are the beneficiary, all the beneficiary has to do is receive. That's it. Now you got to be honorable. If you're a big piece of crap and you're trying to take advantage of people and it doesn't work. Your spiritual alignment has to be proper, or I don't know, because I haven't been on the bad side. So, other than them taking my home, which again is sort of a learning experience along the way, how to control the courts and express. I didn't express myself as the beneficiary clearly, which is why they rolled over me. So now in hindsight, I'm going to get a chance to express myself as the beneficiary, like I have with the grocers, like I will when I need my next automatic covered wagon, that people call an automobile. All these things are being held by the public trust. We need only claim it. Nobody's claiming it because nobody knows how. Everybody thinks it's this weird, far out idea. Whereas if you read the trust code, read the trust law, you'll find out exactly how to do it. So anyway, I'm rambling. Please.
That's great advice. Just receive. Okay. And I want to thank you for being the researcher that you are. Everyone, he's a role model for us. You have to read the law. You'll find it's in there, right? If the folks that perpetrate the frauds against us succeed because they obfuscate, they keep things hidden from us. And so it takes diligent research, and people can pinpoint the very specific lines in the very specific codes that, give us the rights, well, that codify the rights, that speak to the rights that we all know are God-given. So if we could take a look at that, it'd be great to have that on record here tonight. But in the meantime, let's see if there's some questions or comments. David, isn't it great that Ryan came and joined us tonight?
Amazing, Ryan. This is awesome, brother. Thank you. I got a couple questions. I did Right to Travel too, and tried some of the stuff that you've done. And my first short question is, why do you think the judge dismissed the case, the charges against you? Like, because there's all this stuff going on. Like, what is your insight? Because it's hard to tell for me. Like, I'm watching, like, what is it in her mind? Was it so? Yeah. Why do you think she dismissed your charges?
I think two things happened. I think one was, again, what we learn when we study equity and we study, how it works. It's really quite supernatural, or spiritual, if you want to say, you know what I mean? So I think what happened was my conduct when I went in there asking the questions left her no room. And she got my paperwork late anyway because they wouldn't accept it on Friday. So she got it like minutes before. And she seemed to be not quite ready to do battle with me. So it could have been strictly my conduct invoked in a court of equity, and she could see there's no injured party. Let's get this guy out of here. He knows what he's talking about. He's going to be a problem for me, and he might put me on a federal lawsuit, which is what I did in the other case. So
yes,
awesome. They know what they're supposed to do. So that's what I think. She dismissed it, one, because she could see it was going to be, she was going to put herself in harm's way.
Got it. Okay.
And two,
Beautiful.
I think because I came in there honorably and respectfully, and I unknowingly invoked a court of equity, is what I think those two things I think took place.
Beautiful. Yeah, your calm demeanor and vocal awareness, I think, was really powerful. And she probably felt, like you said, the spiritual energy. She's like, just dismiss it. I don't want nothing to do with this guy. And then the federal lawsuit. So I don't know, what is the federal lawsuit that you're doing now? Are you a pro se litigant plaintiff, or can you mind sharing a little bit what's going on there? Because I had a federal lawsuit as well. I'm trying to learn some of this stuff too.
Woohoo! Yeah, I am I'm the claimant, right? Yeah. Not the plaintiff, because they use their commercial terms. Those aren't my terms. Although they've been giving me all kinds of, they made me put plaintiff on my, so I was like, something's not right. Like, because they're telling me they're going to dismiss my case if I don't write plaintiff. And I just, it's just a lot of bizarre things. But basically what happened was, once I studied about what rent is and what rights I have to claim land, and I realized also, well, obviously I found the definition of rent, right? And I went, oh, none of these things apply to me. Like, this is all, it's just, and when you read in the trust law, it's called a gift. What you're giving them is a gift. So they receive your gift happily, right? But what they don't tell you is that they have inadvertently signed you up to be an investor in their mortgage. So that's the trick. That's the ruse. When you sign that thing, you don't read the disclaimer. And a disclaimer disclaims your interest. So then you got to read, well, what's the word interest mean, right? Interest is not what I was taught in school. I was taught in school interest is extra money you make on the principal, right? And but that's not what interest means. Equitable interest, you can have interest in anything. And if there's a piece of land that nobody's using, you can use it. You can't be in one place and say, I call that over there too, that's mine too. That's not equitable. That's not fair. You have a house, but somebody else needs a house. So you're going to say, oh, that's mine too. Now, just to be real clear, because I know some people who are homeowners, right? Airbnb people renting out rooms or whatever it is. Just so you know, you can have a private contract. If you want to have a private contract with another man and have another private contract, that's what I'm talking about, just to be extremely clear. I'm talking about big corporations that come in and try to claim, oh, I know that handsome devil right there. What's up, Anthony? You know, and he's got a good story too. I just helped him out. So, I'm talking about corporations that come in and claim, right? You got a small group of people who claim all this land and say, oh, and it's for usury. They're trying to profit off their brother, right? And even in your private contracts, you know, I mean, it's for each and every individual person. What's your spirit move you? Are you trying to profit off of your brother? That's for you to know. I don't know. Maybe not. You know, maybe you got an extra room and somebody, you know, you want to exchange in that way. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you could clean for the person. There's all these other things you could do besides exchanging fiat dollars. But that's a private thing between you and them. But when I found out that these guys have a deed filed on the record as them as the grantor, granting themselves the rights to that land, right? And it's an artificial entity. It's not even a real man or a woman. Then that leaves me in the superior claim category. Because any claim I put in, I am the man. I am the beneficiary. I am the child of God. There is no corporation that has a louder voice than me when it comes to a court of equity discussing a deed matter, right? I don't encourage people. You know, literally people could go take legal title away from anyone who doesn't know this information. You know, they could totally do it. But is that equitable to your brother? Are you loving thy brother as, you know, love your neighbor as yourself type of thing? So there are ways to misuse this stuff, but that's certainly not what I'm doing. This was a big corporation with a 500 unit apartment. Like 30% of the units are always empty. They only have to keep a certain amount of occupancy in order to get their federal funding. By the way, they're getting federal funding. It's already paid for. It's already paid for. Everything is already paid for.
Right. So you were the claimant in the big corporations was the defendant or respondent, and what were the charges that you were charging them with? If you don't mind sharing.
No, not at all. First, what happened was they charged me with unlawful detainer. So then you got to go in there and you got to look up, well, what's unlawful detainer? And on the summons, it says unlawful detainer, forcible entry. Unlawful detainer / forcible detainer / forcible entry. Well, you've got to have elements to meet the charges. So if you're charging me with forcible entry, forcible detainer, unlawful detainer, where's these two elements? Where did the forcible entry come into play? I didn't force my way in there. You know, I'm not threatening people's lives to stay in there. You know what I mean? They're calling me a tenant, yet they're also saying that I am harming the tenant. That's what forcible entry means. Forcible entry means you came in, broke into a tenant's place, and you won't leave. So am I the tenant or am I the forcible entry guy? Which one? I can't be both, but to them, you can be both. Because as long as you keep yourself in their litigation world, which is where they want you, because now you're a co-trustee and you have no rights and no benefits as a co-trustee. And I can tell you that the way they're jerking me around in my federal case. Like, it doesn't matter how crystal clear I lay out all of their laws. Those are their laws. That has nothing to do with me. For me to hold them accountable for their laws, I'm going about it the wrong way. And that's why they're treating me like one of their co-trustees. So I must remove myself from their litigation world and say, pause, time out. What am I doing wrong? And it turns out that I haven't acknowledged the judge as the trustee, which then I can put myself back in the beneficiary position and clear the record. This is all about, correct the record. I have to correct the record, which is what I had Anthony do. He corrected the record. And when you correct the record, watch how they treat you. It's totally different. You know, this guy in family court that you're going to hear next week, he's got all these litigation things. You know, that's kind of where I got to, where it's like, all right, I got this thing. I know how this works. Like, okay, I can be a lawyer. Okay. But I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to fight these guys anymore. I don't want to fight at all. I don't want to try to find what laws they broke. If it feels like something's wrong, and you know, I know that, hey, this person did something wrong to me, or this government entity did something wrong to me. Well, we have things in place for redress of grievance. You know what I mean? Let's redress it. You know, redress means to correct. So let's correct the situation.
Would you redress the government or the bad actor, the bad public official through a federal lawsuit, or filing a claim against their bond, or some other means? Because I'm with you. I'm tired of fighting, man. And I've been in jail and all these cockamamie charges, been politically targeted for shopping without masks, all this stuff. It's like, leave me alone. You know, allegedly allegedly there's a do not detain list. So it's like, how do I get on there? So I've heard if you file a federal lawsuits, or if you file claims against their bonds, because this is business. So once they realize, uh-oh, this guy's going to cost us, leave him alone. Have you come across the do not detain list, or means to say, just leave me the heck alone? Like, I don't want none of trouble, but if you come after me, I'm going to come with teeth, and it's going to take a lot of your time and money.
I started with the whole, I had the 5-star passport card, right? And everyone's like, you're on do not detain, you're an ambassador. And let me tell you what, they pulled me over just as quick with that. They could care less. I went to the airport and they're like, yeah, get in the back of the line, buddy. You know, so I don't buy any of that stuff. Now, there was, I can't remember who I was talking to, but somebody was telling me when they rescinded their driver's license that they demanded the DMV purge all their information, and that when he got pulled over twice, I can't remember the guy's name. He's from another Telegram group or something. He said he got pulled over twice in 2 different states, and they both told him, you're not in our jurisdiction. You know,
wow.
And that's why I did my records request and said, okay, I live in Costa Mesa, California. Am I in the state? Yes or no? And they said no. And that's tough for people to wrap their head around. Well, how can you be in California, but you're not in the state of California? Because the state of California is an idea. It's an idea. And if you believe it, then you can believe it. Or you can get a records request that will plainly show you that's not you, and that your property is not theirs, and they're supposed to leave you alone. But what I'm finding, for what I'm about to find out, which is, like I said, this next 2 weeks is really exciting, because I am taking a complete 180 from being the lawyer guy that I trained the last 5 months to be. With all this paper, I can't tell you the amount of you probably know, you said you're about to go to federal court or something. So, and you've been in jail before. So, you know that it can be time consuming. I don't want that anymore. So much, what I found was other people were having success using equity. And I went, you know what? Because I already went down the equity road, but I didn't know anyone who could apply it. So I just went right back to the litigation road. And then I thought, they're jerking me around. How come I can't get any remedy here? But then, you know what? Somebody else started having remedy with the equity side of it. So that's where I started learning, and I shared with Anthony, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, so we're on track here. We are the beneficiary of the public trust, and there is a public trust because I got a check from the public trust. So I know there's a public trust. So anyway.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Look forward to connecting again. Thank you, sir.
Hey, greetings, guys. Greetings. This is a wonderful talk. Ryan, you're amazing. I'm so grateful to actually meet you. I actually saw your video the other day, and I found it to be very inspiring. I found it on another Telegram group, and I passed it on to my husband, who he and I are separated now because of my journey here. At least that's one of the reasons anyway. And just to blow him away, and I was like, now that's what I'm talking about. And when I saw the video, I was like, I wonder how he got to record it. That was really smart. But everything you said is so on point. I am actually fighting a federal case right now. I'm in court. I filed an adversary proceeding that I'm doing, and like you said, it's all about coming in with equity, and that's how I'm coming in. I'm making the judge the fiduciary. I'm filing the Form 56, and I have a whole bunch. I'm working with a group that's helping me, so I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of that. I did an adversary proceeding previously, and she just rolled right over me. Went in court and let her know from the onset that I was not the trustee in the matter. I'm not surety here. I actually said all the quote unquote right thing. Didn't respond to the all caps name, letting her know that I am here as a beneficiary and representative for the all caps, but I am not the entity. And
Mhm.
what was your thoughts about crossing the bar and all of that stuff too, because that's one of the things that I didn't want to do, but she said we couldn't proceed unless I crossed the bar, because I did ask if it was being recorded and the whole nine line. It was a very interesting experience, but like you said, they just roll over you and ruled according to their statutory games.
Mhm. First thing is I wouldn't use an IRS form in a court. I would, if you're going to notice or acknowledge the appointment of trustee,
Right.
I would do it with your own writing. I wouldn't use a Form 56. That's just the first thing that popped into my head. I would seriously consider not doing that, because when you use their forms, especially in their, commercial capacity, I mean, again, it's your conduct. So if you're using their things, they're going to assume you're one of them.
Gotcha.
So you don't want to be one of them. You can notice the judge without using a Form 56. You can write
I
it on
do
a
have a
napkin.
letter. Yeah, I do have a letter noticing her, but this is part of the package, if you will, which is to
Gotcha.
include the Form 56. But yeah, I've heard that where you don't mention, where people have mentioned not using their form and creating success. But I'm all for that. And you're absolutely right. I just had a niece who claimed the property in North Carolina. I know a couple of people who have done it. And
Nice.
yeah, she did the whole 9 yards, everything. And she's soon to move in.
Amazing.
Yeah. So everything you've said was definitely on point, and it is a huge spiritual thing. That's what it's about. It's that ownership, and I'm slowly moving into getting rid of the license as well. When it expires, I'm not going to renew it, because I do feel like I want to live this life. That this avatar body was given to us by our creator, and it's not for some fake, fictitious evil system to control, dominate, and keep people in poverty and in economic and financial slavery, So I'm all for it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I really appreciate it. And I think I will connect with you on your YouTube, because I would love to get some further directions, if you will, as to what's the best way to deal with this court case. Are you familiar
Absolutely.
with an adversary proceeding?
A little bit. I have another one of my friends. She went that route, but like I said, I stopped all of that for now, and I'm just like, you know what? No more. Like, I don't do that anymore. Like, when it comes to my property, I mean, I'm filing a deed of trust I'm recording it with the county record, and so I had to learn about trust law, and
Yes.
then further from that, like I said, the magistrate judge who's interloping into my case anyway, he's not even supposed to be there. I declined him 3 times, I mean, they're just blatantly breaking the law. I'm like, you're not even supposed to be here. But he told me to rewrite my pleading for a 5th time. And that's when I was like, something's just not working here. And so there's a gentleman over on Facebook that I'm working with right now. His name is Israel X. And like, there's some real power. He's a no nonsense dude, but I mean, the direction he's giving me as far as defining words and understanding that I didn't know that even just the most simple words like dollar, I went to the county and I got a copy of my assignment of rents and leases, which I didn't even know what that was before I got involved in this whole thing. And right on the top, it says that they gave the lender a note for $28 million. $28 million of what?
Mm.
A note of what? Go look up what a note is. Look, I can just take this and I got a note. What's that mean?
Mm.
It means nothing. It's all make believe. It's for commerce. If you're not in commerce, and that's also with the so with the court hearing, it's just about noticing the judge of his fiduciary duty and letting him do the equitable thing and settle the matter. Do the accounting and settle the matter. And because I was wondering why I'm sitting in front of my computer literally crying at times, because it's so hard. I have to learn this new lawyer language, and it's like it wasn't in alignment with my
Thoughts?
soul.
Yeah, just a
So
big
once I
thought.
found equity, I went, oh, and like I said, in the next couple of weeks, well, not even in the next couple of weeks, I've already passed on some of this information to people like Anthony, where he already had success, and it's like, there you go, it's already proven itself. I gave it to another lady last week too. Same thing. She was arrested. She was pregnant. They drug her out of her car. They put her in a cage. And then they told her to come into the court hearing, and she sent in, the paperwork that I gave her. And suddenly she can't find her name anywhere. It just disappeared. It's like, she goes, I can't find my case or anything. And I said, that's how they do it. They just disappear. Suddenly it's like, oh, well, we couldn't serve them, or, oh, we could, they come up with some little lame ass excuse, which is fine by me. As long as they leave me alone, that's all I care. The right to be left alone is the most comprehensive and valued by a civilized world, So that's Supreme Court case law somewhere. I'm paraphrasing, but in my piles of stuff, I do have that. So thank you for your kind words, Portia. And I am dedicated. That's why I said this next couple of weeks when because then I'm literally going to be, I want to tell everybody everything right now, but I got to wait till, I like to apply stuff for myself. And then I can say, yes, I feel right about sharing this with someone else. I'm fine being the guinea pig, as Peggy Hall called me. She's like, well, you be the guinea pig. And I don't know if you guys know Peggy Hall, but I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars, maybe $100,000 she spent litigating a case against the board of directors of Orange County. And I told her, I said, you got to do that yourself. You can't pay. God doesn't want us paying people fiat dollars to do shit for us that we're supposed to do for ourselves. He wants us to become men and women responsible for ourselves. If you're not responsible for yourself, then go pay your taxes, get in line, get your licenses, all that good stuff.
You're a good boy and good girl.
Yeah.
All right, Noah, how's it going?
It's good. My camera's not working, so I'm sorry about that.
How dare you?
Yeah. Anyway, no, and good to see David and Clint again. I haven't seen David since Float Fest last year, but no, everything you said is extremely poignant. I had an experience recently with a speeding ticket in Contra Costa County, and it got dismissed, but only because I think the cop didn't show up and I didn't get a chance to really challenge anything. But at the traffic stop, I was not being very honorable in the sense that I was kind of like, well, why do I have to show you my license? And but I stuck to the point where this is not a commercial entity, it's not a commercial vehicle. I told you I'm traveling and I'm not doing commercial. And then it took another 20 minutes of just back and forth to where one of the officers said, is this the hill you're willing to die on? And I took that as a threat. And I said, fine. Yeah, I said, I'll take your ticket. I'll sign it under threat, duress, and coercion. And then I failed to do the first appearance. So I got a failure to appear. And then I dragged it out for another. Dude, I literally got it in February. We didn't go until October. So basically kind of feeling like I dragged it out. I didn't file any paperwork, but I'm all familiar with David. I'm familiar with the right to travel. I was ready to stand on my ground and tell the judge that you're my fiduciary responsibility to make me whole, and that I don't have an injured party. So where is this going to go if it's criminal or civil? But I didn't get it because the police officer didn't show up. So that's part of my question to you is, if you were stopped by a police officer, weren't they supposed to show up to, basically be the witness against you? But since they didn't show up for my case, the in traffic court, it's just case dismissed. So at some point, did you have to deal with the police officer? And I didn't file any paperwork, so I wanted to learn a little bit more of the, because again, I've always heard the word, if you use the paper will work, right? And then if you're response able, you're doing the responses or you're responding to them instead of reacting, because you know how I would like to react, but you're you also want to put them on notice. And we were also trying to be first in line, first in time for this whole thing. So really, I just wanted to know, when was an officer confronting you? Was this about the travel, the license plate, and all that stuff? And then the bail, that was an interesting one, because I refused to pay the bail. That's why I wanted to drag it out, right? So that was so the other thing too was on the ticket, I signed UCC 1-308, and the officer was like, "What's that?" And he's all, I said, "You're threatening me, and I'm using without prejudice, right? I don't agree to the contract, and I don't know the full level of what's in the contract." And then he kind of let it go, and then went on the paperwork to do the trial case for civil court, or traffic court. I wrote all rights reserved, without prejudice, and then scribbled my name really large between it, so it touched everything. And then I'm
in court, they wanted us to do the tracing.
Oh yeah, so I don't know if you guys also know that they were making men and women sign a piece of paper at the beginning of the court proceeding to do convid track and tracing. And I refused to sign it, but I also got confronted in another case that my friend had an unlawful detainer. I said, "Show me the law that says I have to sign that." And then they locked the doors and kept us out of court at a next. Dude, it's crazy. Anyway, we can go on and on and on. I'm just curious, when an officer was actually dealing with you, he didn't show up, but you showed up,
That's the easiest thing in the world for them to get out of.
They just don't show up. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
The officer might be in the back and they're like, "Stay back here." Yeah, no,
Right.
that way they have an excuse to, because again, it's business. So if it's bad for business, and they don't want to bother with it.
I felt like partly was that if I were to FOIA or however request the video or any conversation I had with the police officer, it would state that I never even admitted to the traffic offense, and I was just sticking to my ground that I was not under commercial, and that that I also had a friend in the car, girlfriend in the car, wife in the car, whatever you want to call her.
I don't know what
No,
are you gonna call her?
It's funny what levels we've gone to, we've escalated. So anyway, long story. So funny.
I think it'll just be you next time.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I promised. Sorry. Sorry, I can go on and on. But I think it was partly how you signed the documentation, and then the confrontation with the officer. I was more along the lines of standing on my ground that I'm not part of your commercial entity, but I may not have been presented well. I'm just saying that part put in their head, this guy's not worth it. So if we all kind of stick to what you said and stand the ground, that they may think it's not worth it.
Well, here again, the main thing to remember is have grace, have grace, have grace, have grace, have grace. These guys, they're not hiring the cream of the crop.
No,
okay?
They're not.
They're hiring dumbed down thugs, people that are like usually ex-military, where they follow orders, they got a bit of a violent streak in them,
Low IQs.
yeah, they're all trained to beat on you. I mean, that's the training.
Hey, look up the definition of cruiser. Sorry to interrupt you. A cruiser means a pirate ship going searching for enemies.
I believe it.
That's what a police cruiser is.
I totally believe it. So when they come, what I just say is, so I guess this is probably a good segue. You asked me to show you this stuff anyway, so
so I'm done. That's really just part of my story, and the questions is if you had to deal with the police officer present at the time as well.
Yeah, well, I have a binder in my car, and what I do is I say, "Okay, hey, officer." Well, the first thing I do is I say, "Hey, is it possible I pulled over because," and again, you want to try to ask questions, right? You don't want to tell them this or that. They get very upset with you knowing more than them. So I just ask questions. "Hey, is it possible there is an emergency that I pulled over for?" And when he says license and registrations, and you say, "Well, I'm going to have to ask you a question. Is that something that you could possibly use in a court of law against me?" And if they say yes, then you say, oh, well,
Plead the fifth.
then you might want to read me my rights, right? I have the right to remain silent. I have the right not to incriminate myself. So I think it's best that I don't give you anything. And by the way, I acknowledge your appointment as a public trustee of the public trust. I am the beneficiary of the trust. Go ahead and get that on his camera. Take away his good faith. Because that's what they rely on. They rely on, oh, gee whiz, I didn't know. It's my good faith, So take that away from him right away. And then if he wants to push the issue more, you just say, would you please give me a supervisor? And if they try to push this situation more, I get my phone and I call 911 and I start a new record, right? Or call the sheriff. The sheriff would be a better one to have on, unless it's a sheriff that pulled you over then. But yeah, I would call the police and I would just say, hey, I'm making a record that I've asked for a supervisor. Nobody's getting a supervisor. This officer here is trying to escalate the situation. And clearly, again, you can hand him the law here that says your only exemption is if you are right here, response to an emergency call or engaged in rescue operations or immediate pursuit of an actual suspected violator of the law. Policy, code, statutes aren't law. Okay? They're not law. So if you know that, there's no enacting clause. So you go with that to start with. Then you say, hey, by the way, officer, the code says the provisions of this code applicable to the drivers of vehicles upon highways apply to the drivers of all vehicles while engaged in the course of employment by this state, any political subdivision thereof, any municipal corporation, or any district. Is that you? Am I driving at the pleasure of the governor? No. So I say, okay, so it says the provisions of this code don't apply to me. It says you're only supposed to turn on your well, and again, I wouldn't tell them this. Mine are more questions, officer, if this you probably won't even get to this point, to be honest with you, before they get you a supervisor. And then each time a new supervisor or a new public trustee shows up, you acknowledge their appointment as a public trustee as well. Each time another person I acknowledge your appointment as a public trustee as well. I'm the beneficiary of the public trust. Okay, I'd like you to settle this matter and let me be on my way. That's it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Is this a California codes right here?
Yeah. This is California.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And there was one more.
Finally, someone in California that's fighting California.
Yeah, right.
I'm so tired of feeling like we're alone here. But David, I know we're not far away. I just haven't met you in person in California, just in Texas.
Right on. We'll connect. That was great, Ryan. Goodness gracious, man. How'd you find these?
I got a motor vehicle code book, and also there's a woman named Jackie Fig, God rest her soul. Jackie Fig.
Yes. Love her. Love you, Jackie.
She still has IDP, internally displaced people, IDP something. If you look up Jackie Fig IDP, she's got, a lot of stuff in there. So she was in California. So I had a leg up on the California. Once she pointed out a couple of these things, I don't know how to rotate this one around, but this last one here is very general. It just says commercial vehicles, right? Are required to be registered. And then up here, it says a passenger vehicle is not a commercial vehicle. So if one says it has to be registered and the other one doesn't say it has to be registered, then, okay, which one am I? I'm not a commercial vehicle. And this is California, by the way. If you go into, I don't remember what title it is, but if you go into the United States Code,
18 U.S. Code, Section 31A6. It says motor vehicles for commercial purposes, which commercial purposes for fee, fare, or profit. Thank you. Sorry.
Boom. Pow, right in the kisser. And there's also another line in there that says commercial vehicles over 10,000 pounds. So.
And moves up to 12 people, I believe it is.
All right.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, but here's the real crux of the whole matter is you might have 5 out of 6 good exchanges. You know what I mean? You might have 50 out of 51 good exchanges. And then at some point, like myself, when the officer decided he was going to put me to the test and take me into court, it's like, all right, so but it's nothing to be feared. It's something to be, these are the different layers of fear we need to take off in order to get to our inheritance, right? Because if we're afraid and we're hanging on to all these little things, especially a night in jail, like, give me a break. It's like, come on, these are the things we get to overcome. If we can't trust God to show up for us in these simple things, how could we possibly receive our inheritance? So but I'm not discounting the fact that it's scary, but that's why we learn the law. That's why we look it up and we read it, and this way we know we're right. I know when I'm saying that this doesn't apply to me, I know the truth. And I've gotten a chance to go and apply it in court, which is great. Now I said, oh, your rents and your scheming of me investing into your mortgage doesn't apply to me either. And that mortgages are all fictional and made up. What they're selling you is a business. You're signing a piece of paper that tells them you're a business. Now they have, commercialized your property. So I make the leap into that because that's where I'm at. That's the fight I'm in now. But I shouldn't even say fight. It's the task I have before me now. I don't want to be a problem solver anymore. I want to be a task master. I want to master my tasks. So the next task I have is to acknowledge the trustees, to file my deed of trust on the record, and to put an order in the court and have them settle the thing, and so that way we're not fighting anymore.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, obviously, we know transformation is happening in our land and in yourself when you're at the very core of who am I and what is my identity, what is my truth, and we're all in a crucible apparently to purify us. And I thank you so much for representing that over and over again, so consistently, so powerfully. Anthony, if you'd like to, because you mentioned him and some work you did, just if you guys can get it in just a few minutes, maybe, like what was the thing you did, what worked, and can we get the paperwork?
Well, I'll leave that up to Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
By the way, this is the only room that called me Ryan because you guys have seen my video. Everybody else calls me Thor.
Thor.
So yep. If you go outside of this room, just stick to Thor, or else nobody's gonna know who you're talking about. My mom will know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Thor's been very helpful. I actually came across Commoner Law about 3 weeks ago, and very thankful for David and Clint and Fritz, for everything you guys do. And I reached out. I saw Thor's video and reached out to him, and he was very helpful. And I had a speeding ticket. I was just purchased a new truck. I actually had the MCO in hand, and I never registered and or titled the vehicle. And I basically invoked my 4th and 5th Amendment rights. I tried to talk to the officer, politely and pleasantly. He tried to get me on a criminal. He tried to say it was a crime, and I told him, people versus battle, traffic infractions aren't a crime, and I just went through the whole spiel, and he still continued to violate my rights. And so I just said, under threat of arrest, I'll go ahead and provide you my name and date of birth. And he was able to pull up my valid driver's license. So he wrote me a ticket based off of that. And my driver's license says rural free delivery for my address. I thought that's kind of funny. So who are they going to send the ticket to? But I just ended up reaching out to Ryan. He was able to provide me some document that I was able to cannot be compelled, because it was an actual summons. The cop basically said, I'll work with you and I'll give you no proof of insurance instead of a no speeding ticket. And so he gave me a no proof of insurance ticket. And so I was summoned to appear, and I submitted a non-negotiable notice of acceptance, as well as Thor's cannot be compelled document. And so I pulled up, Park County courts here in Colorado, and I'm actually located domiciled in this Colorado Springs. And I pulled up the court case, and it showed that I was supposed to be there at 9 a.m. And 2-3 hours later, I refreshed the window, and nowhere to be seen. So that was pretty much the case. It just basically got dismissed. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, wonderful. So how can we get a hold of that document, Thor? It sounds like a pretty cool. I mean, is it, if it's available to us? You can
Well,
attach
it is,
1,000.
but what I do is I do consults with that. And the reason is because it's very important that people get a real good comprehension on what it is they're doing. It's not, it's going into the world of equity. And if you go in there, intermingling different law, then you're less likely to have the appropriate response from the court. And the last thing I want is people going in there and using something with the wrong intention and then muddying the waters, so to speak. So
I get
I'm
Thank
pretty
I very much appreciate that. The context is decisive, and the paperwork is just a tool. So I just want to thank you once again. It's our time for tonight. It's been a pretty fast 2 hours, huh? You guys, look how quickly the time went. I'm sorry we're not able to get to all the questions and or comments tonight, but I thank you everyone for showing up. This has been recorded. It's going to be on our YouTube and Rumble channels. Thank you everyone for being here. Thanks so much, Ryan, for a super compelling conversation. And as I said, I got my mind blown tonight, which is a wonderful experience to have. Lots of food for thought, and definitely a real call to all of us to be bigger than we thought we are.
Yeah, and thank you so much for reaching out to me, Clint, and inviting me here. You're like, oh, thanks for being on such short notice. I honestly, this is why I believe that God provided everything for us, so that we could spend our energy giving to each other instead of going out there trying to figure out how am I going to make doll hairs for this and doll hairs for that. And because my energy is better served giving to others. This is my other half right here, and we spend the day, yeah, this is Dude Man. We spend the day going around cheering people up, making people's lives better, and then people reach out to me with different issues they're having, and that feels right. I feel good about it. So when you contacted me, I was like, absolutely, thanks for giving me an opportunity to join your group here. It's wonderful, and you're being of service by having this platform. If there's more folks like yourself that could have a platform like this, and we can really spread the news. And so yeah, anyway, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm grateful.
If I may very quickly, Thor, just say that I will definitely be reaching out to you. I think David and Clint know I've been fighting a ticket where I was pulled over for over, it's going to be 3 years now, and it's been postponed and postponed. And it's interesting that you guys, if the officer doesn't show up, you still have to pay for the ticket. They dismiss it here in New York because we don't sign for the tickets. I went through a very similar situation as the gentleman who was talking before, where I went through under stress, duress, and coercion and all that good stuff. Had to give up the the driver's license, because the officer, the constable, I did accelerate it, and the sergeant that came on the scene threatened to tow my vehicle if I wouldn't give him my automobile, my carriage, if I didn't give him the driver's license. And that was back in 2021. So it's been postponed a couple of times, once by me, once by the officer. Now I'm scheduled to appear in March of next year, or June of next year. So I will reach out to you and set up a consult because I definitely want to come in equity. You're all right. I've been studying a wise, concise handbook. That's a great one that, equity
That's
is,
it.
it is, it's the king, and it's what we have in operating in trust and as executor and beneficiary. So definitely.
Or
Just want to say
grantor and
Thank you.
thank you,
beneficiary
Clint.
or
Thank you.
trustor.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, a
Absolutely.
trustor.
whatever,
Absolutely.
all different names. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Thank you,
thank you,
Portia, for
thank you,
being here.
thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Thor. And of course, Clint co-hosting and leading it. And brothers and sisters, we have good news. Truth is rising. Freedom is rising. And we've been in the dark ages for maybe a generation or two or three. And now we have access to information. There's courageous men and women out there that are knowing that they're here for this reason. That is to spread the truth, the light, and to inspire each other. And that's why we have this monthly call to get together, share ideas and stories and solutions, because it is upon us now that this slave system is now, we can see it coming, and people like us are bifurcating. There's a bifurcation happening where we're going to travel and be free and have independent food, water, energy, truth, and voluntary contracts. It is coming. I just learned out something called the network state. Look that up, but there's a great awakening happening. Parallel systems, private schools, private hospitals, private grocery stores. We don't need them. They're going to lock down to the digital ID, the CBDC, all that baloney, and we're going to create new things and new solutions. And so right to travel is just the tip of the spear, learning contracts. So it is a very positive time. So don't let the mind control get you. Government, the root word is gubernari mente, which is control of your mind. So liberate yourself and be free. You are the sons and daughters of the Most High or source or creator, whatever your beliefs are, but you are a significant being on the earth. I believe kings and queens. So again, thank you, Thor and Clint and all the leaders who are rising around you. Come back next month. If you have some other recommendations, let Clint or I know, because this is what we're doing out here. We're exercising our freedoms. We're not asking permission any longer. And again, just learning about this equity and some kind of solutions is very empowering. And that's the energy that we feel every month. I feel like this every month, Clint. So thanks for co-creating this. And Thor, your power and strength too, brother. And everybody that joined us, thank you so very much, because it's one human family and we're coming together, and we send you peace and love, and may all the good things happen to you in the next month, and be brave and be bold and go for it all. We'll see you next time with Free Traveler.
Gratitude.